Get real close to the TV, kids.
It's Josh and Frankie.
What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations. I am Josh. Right over there, behind the glasses, Frankie.
Hi, Josh.
Frankie, welcome back to Primus Tracks. One of these days, I'll be able to start one without you, but I doubt it. You're always lurking in the dark. And we have two wonderful people here to help us with today's track, Anza Jig. You know him. You love him. He is the champion of the old guard. He is Tim Soya.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Tim.
Who's this purple stuff?
You cut my wrist, purple comes out, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right.
Trippy. Frankie,
right.
would you change your mic? You sound different than last week.
Oh, I got a better set now.
You only sound a little bit like a telemarketer, and but my extended warranty is all paid up, so I don't need to.
I can still smell the El Pastor through my computer.
Oh, cool.
So, Mexico City El Pastor is the bomb.
Awesome.
And joining us, he helped us with DMV, our last time out with the Pork Soda album. And I should say, you should follow him at Instagram at HamOfTruth86, because he has done a few of these supplemental takes on some of the bass riffs and the music that's going on in some of the tracks that we've covered. Matt Hunter. Matt, welcome back to Primus Tracks.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, and yourself?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, it's a doozy of a track, so I'm glad you brought your bass, because we're really going to break it down. I hope you brought your six-string.
Frankie brought his homework, because this
Yeah.
is a short one.
Did you also bring your six-string banjo?
Oh, you know what? I just have a Telecaster here, but that'll have to do.
Absolutely. Well, we are talking about track 10 from Tales of the Punch Bowl today, Anza Jig, and for me it's notable for two reasons. One, this was the first track that ever played on the CD player in my grandparents' 1995 Buick LeSabre that they bought brand new. And my grandma said, "Do you want to bring some CDs to play in the CD player?" And it was the first car I'd been in with a CD player. I said, "Absolutely." And my dad looked at me and said, "Take it easy now." So I chose Anza Jig as opposed to a Sepultura CD. So I brought Tales from the Punch Bowl and put this on, and that was the first track. And my grandma said, "Oh, that sounds nice." And I turned it down before the lyrics kicked in.
The lyrics aren't so bad on this one.
Not so bad, but I figured just to be safe, because you never know. There's a couple of things where they might have gone, "Excuse me?" So there's that. And I think this is the Primus track that so far I have the least to say about. So I'm so glad, Matt, you're here, and Soy, I'm glad you're here. For that purpose as well, you guys can carry it today. You know, I think we all have our skippers, depending on who our favorite band is. You know, I'm a big Primus fan, of course, and other bands that I like. You know, I'm a huge Captain Beefheart fan, but there's still a few on Trout Mask that I'll skip. I just go, not today. You know, the ones I tend to skip for Primus tend to be the California redneck jaunts, for lack of a better term. So when Les is really digging into that persona. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Couple of things. Frankie, you brought some miscellaneous debris today.
So there's a cool guy on Instagram. His name is Landon. He sent me a message regarding our previous episode because I mentioned the weird upright puppies. And I thought they had only performed that version once. But he told me that it was also performed at the Brady Theater in 2012. Unfortunately, there are no recordings from that night available. So all we have is the anecdotal evidence that this was the second time Les performed Too Many Puppies on the upright bass. So that's 2 performances during their entire career.
So that doubles the number of performances. That shoots it right up the list.
Yeah.
Hold on now. Frankie, how in tune with Bob Cock and the Yellow Sock are you?
Plenty of recordings from those nights.
That's an older song. It could have been one that I never saw the Bob Cock thing where Les played the stand-up. Not Bob Cock the character, but, you know, the band was Primus. And they
were making time for him to arrive. Yeah.
Right. They called the band Bob Cock and the Yellow Sock.
Yeah.
I've seen one video of, I can't remember what song I saw, but there was one I saw of a song. But you can't confirm that they did not do that?
That's a good question. I don't know if they ever did a version of Puppies with that.
I wouldn't know. I don't dig deep in the internet on this kind of stuff, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
The set lists for the Yellow Sock performances are, not all nights are available. And the ones that I can see, Too Many Puppies isn't listed. But there are several nights, so who knows? Maybe they did perform Too Many Puppies, but we just don't know. The ones that we can see, I mean, it's really cool. They did John the Fisherman, Harold of the Rocks, Tommy the Cat, Mr. Know-It-All, Groundhog's Day, and some covers like A Shot in the Dark,
Oh, yeah.
disco stuff, In the Flesh.
But none of those
Really
sound
cool
like
stuff.
the actual album versions, right? They're
No,
all
not
just
at all. They're
goofy
radically
swing
different.
versions,
And
yeah.
you know what is interesting is that the last time that they did the Yellow Sock was in 1993, and it was part of the KROQ Acoustic Christmas. But as you have read on the Grapevine book, it was kind of a disaster, and they got banned from the radio.
I think that got them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I read that book, but I don't remember every detail.
They were all of a sudden not welcome down there at K-Rock. Yeah. That's got to be a good time.
15-minute set, turntable stage, it's whatever. Load in, load out, and leave.
Hey, that means that Primus could do an NPR Tiny Desk concert at some point.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
I'm surprised Les hasn't got involved in that.
The Twang would be a great one for a Tiny Desk show.
Totally.
They got to get that going again.
Ripping.
I'm sorry. So you had that miscellaneous debris, Frankie, and that's great. In the last episode, Del Davis, we got a few comments about how it is a live favorite of a lot of folks because it is, I guess, so rare, but it's also on that magical fretted 6. And Matt, you're a bass player, so I would love to hear your brief thoughts on Del Davis as a whole, but also the live performances given that fretted 6 that we all love so much.
It's one of those weird tracks it might not spring to mind when a lot of folks think, favorite Primus tracks, but it's one that's always for some reason stuck out to me, and maybe it is my affinity towards the 6-string end of things that Primus does. I mean, not that Les Claypool doesn't stand out on his own with a 4-string, but the sound of a 6-string, whether it be the rainbow or the fretted, is just, especially the way he approaches it, just sounds completely unlike anything else in popular music. So, and it's just heavy, like this record is maybe my favorite Primus record for a couple reasons. Leading among them, I think, is some of the heavier tracks. Like Nut Butter has already been talked a whole lot, but just kind of the darker, heavier, kind of more ominous vibe, even though it's a song about Christmas trees,
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I really dig it. And it's a lot of, I sort of showed this a little bit in the supplemental, thanks for mentioning, that I did on Blaylene, where he's doing a whole lot of sort of octaves with the very lowest B string and the very highest C string. He's doing chords and stuff. So he's playing a lot, kind of just, he's just kind of hanging around one location, but all of the accents and percussion that he uses in his playing a lot just really adds to the flavor. I think it's a killer track.
Do you agree it's a Christmas song, Matt?
That's a tricky one. I'm inclined to just label anything that involves Christmas as Christmas so that I have an excuse to enjoy it on Christmas instead of watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation for the 150th time. Not that it's a bad film, but I need a break once in a while. You know what I mean?
If it gets a mention.
I'll watch Krampus and Die Hard at Christmas. I'll dig it.
I watch Batman Returns on Christmas. I think it's a Christmas film.
Very nice. Very nice.
Oh, my
Good
goodness.
choice.
Who are these people, Soya?
Yeah, kids, we play Christmas Story like for 3 days straight. 4 hours a day. That's it, man.
It's a good thing this isn't a movie podcast because we'd all be screaming at each other, I think. What?
Yeah, we actually did a Oompa shoot of the B-roll that went up on the screen in front of the Christmas Story house.
Oh.
And I think the house is actually in Cleveland, I want to say, maybe.
Yes, I believe it wasn't. Yes, it was in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't think it was in Chicago, right?
We went to it, and there's a sign out front, and I almost got in a fight with a bum out front.
Jeez.
One of 2 altercations I had in that Oompa costume. Close to altercations,
Oh, man.
It was in front of the Christmas Story house. It's funny. We'll get to that when we get to the Wonka record.
Okay, well, you whetted my appetite.
Always goofy stuff went on and goes on. Come on.
Well, especially when you're walking around in that getup. That's for sure. I should also mention, if you want to support the podcast, Frankie's designed these beautiful stickers that were printed by Sticker Robot. You can find them on our Instagram. If you are interested in purchasing some stickers to help for the server costs of the program, every single dollar that comes to us goes into this PayPal account. I'm not using it to buy blow. Frankie's not taking quarters out and going to the vending machine and getting bubble gums and whatever it is the kids are getting these days. It all is going towards the server costs. So if you're interested, you can DM us at Primus Tracks on Instagram or Twitter. Wallpaper your bathroom.
And if you guys get stickers, take some pictures, share them with us, and we'll make sure to post them on Primus Tracks.
Yes, I actually have one that I need to post. It is a great one. We are here to talk about Anza Jig Track 10, Tales from the Punch Bowl. checks in at a little over 2 minutes. Before we get into the music and the lyric itself, Frankie, live history, what do we have this time? And I must admit, I know nothing of the live history of this track.
It's quite irregular, Josh. It was premiered at Red Rocks in 1995, and it was, really consistent during the entire Punch Bowl tour. The majority of the performances come from that particular tour, a few more in 1996, and after that, as you know, it completely vanished from setlists until Tour de Fromage. Even still, it was kind of a rarity during that tour because it only got played a total of 5 times. Surprisingly, it was busted out at Bonnaroo. So, that's an interesting venue, occasion to perform that song. After that, for some reason, during the Beat a Dead Horse tour in 2006, they really enjoyed playing that song. They brought it back, and it was fairly consistent during the set list. As you know, there are also some lone performances in 2005. They also performed it once during that time. After that, interestingly enough, it was performed 3 times with Jay Lane in 2010 when Primus returned. And the last performance to date was not actually by Primus, but it was by Duo the Twank. They performed the track only once in 2014 in a Twank version. It happened in Dallas, Texas, Soya, on March 14, 2014. Oh, the Sons of Herman Hall is the venue.
So, that sounds familiar.
As many shows as you've done, man.
It's a pretty low-res YouTube video of it.
Yeah.
That I referenced in preparation.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I thought it was one of those tunes that would really lend itself to the twang treatment. I was a little surprised that they didn't bust it out more.
Yeah, me too. It was surprising to see so many amazing numbers get performed only a few times by Twank. Josh and I actually had a really amazing conversation with Brian Kehoe, and I got to inquire about several of those rare songs, and he told me that basically some of them just didn't work in the Twang version, so they got dropped very quick.
That's correct. Yep, that is correct.
Speaking of live venues and live history here, Soya, you said, when you go on tour in the United States, your biggest shows are usually LA and New York City, and I'm sure that still holds true in the 2020s. But Frankie mentioned Red Rocks, so I'm curious about that venue because it is in a very unique place and I guess has a storied history, but it seems like a big deal to play Red Rocks. I'm curious.
Well, have you ever been there?
I've only seen pictures. Looks pretty magnificent.
It is one of the most epic venues in the world, or not in the world, but in America. It's like the Greek Theater in Berkeley, or it's even more spectacular than that. And the thing about Red Rocks is everybody wants to play there because of the experience of playing in that natural amphitheater between those rock formations. Mm-hmm. And, you go down in the back to catering in the dressing rooms and you're in the rock formations down there. They made rooms around it all,
Oh, okay.
But Red Rocks is so cool. It doesn't matter who's playing. It's sold out.
Yeah.
It's like if Primus is playing for 2,000 people a night on the tour, and then they book Red Rocks for 2 nights, and it's like 6,000 people a night. It's sold out both nights. Doesn't matter who's playing. Everybody will go see anything there just to go see and be at Red Rocks,
So the experience of Red Rocks is as much of a draw as the band themselves.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. And I'm not discrediting Primus saying that they didn't sell 6,000 or whatever the capacity is there, whatever that number is. Anybody of any band genre is playing at Red Rocks, everyone comes out of the woodwork and gets there because it's a phenomenal visual oral experience to be there, and the way the rocks are all lit up and stuff. And if you remember the U2 video, Sunday Bloody Sunday, was filmed there.
Yeah.
And they used to have the flames firing up out of the turrets at the stage left and stage right side. They don't do that anymore, but
yeah,
that's the first time I ever saw Red Rocks was in that video when I was in high school. I was like, wow, where is this, man? Where there's coming out of the top of the stage and Bono's flying that flag around and holding it in the crowd and stuff, So when I finally got there for the first time, it was very iconic, to be there. And I've been there about 15, 20 times now.
Okay.
Wow, that's amazing. Red Rocks is in my bucket list. I need to see Primus there.
I mean, dude, if you ever are in that area and some band that you don't even know or care about, whatever's playing to be in that experience, it's half of the experience other than what's on the stage.
Okay.
That venue is epic of all epics, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. I asked in part because, and Frankie, maybe you can help me. Is this the first Primus performance at Red Rocks?
I don't think so. Let me check.
I think so. I think Punch Bowl was the first time we played there.
That makes me wonder, because it's Red Rocks. It's your first time there. No fucking around. You got to play De Anza Jig.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I mean, we were on the Punch Bowl tour, so Les really tried to go lean heavy on that catalog of that record that we just had gotten done.
Absolutely. Let the sounds of Lur's banjo bounce off all the rock faces and scare the squirrels in attendance. The track itself, we should definitely talk about the track as it is on the record. We have the upright bass. We have Larry on the 6-string banjo, and even though he has 175 drums in his kit for this album, I think Tim is playing 2 of them. Is that about right?
Kick and snare is about all he plays.
Yeah,
kick and snare. That's about it.
Okay. So, Matt, you are an exceptional bass player. Take it away, man. What's going on? How is this tune built?
You really gotta be on your A game for this one. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's a killer. What's really interesting about it though is that it's such a major key Primus song, and there aren't really a whole lot of those.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about it today, the only other one that popped to mind was Cheer Up Charlie. Kind of has it goes pretty major and then it kind of gets pretty minor, but there's not a lot of real major key Primus tunes, and this one's based around basically a C major chord.
Okay.
So you got that's all C major, and it kind of just follows that outline, and it kind of does the knee slapping kind of do it a twang kind of. Which is why I always thought it would have really suited that project, but it's pretty much riding that for 90% of the tune, and under the lyrics it mirrors kind of a typical progression where it goes kind of it goes back down and it goes back up. Pretty much sticks to that the whole time. The most interesting part to me, melodically and in terms of on the bass is sort of the recurring lick that he does where, like I said, C major, and that's just, I think that's a cool melodic bass line, and it suits the song perfectly. The song, I don't think needs, it's a very simple song, as we've alluded to, but I don't really think it needs a whole lot. I'm not sure how they would build upon it anymore. It's just a very short, sweet, simple, and it sort of sits in my mind. I lump it in a lot with The Air Is Getting Slippery, sure. Even though The Air Is Getting Slippery is a lot more kind of dissonant and kind of weird, but it still has that kind of knee slapping.
Yeah,
I lump these two in my mind together a lot for that reason.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the melody, because there was some interview at some point, and I think it was around the Punch Bowl cycle there, that Les said, or he called the De Anza Jig bass line one of the most melodic things he'd ever written. I think he's right. I'm trying to mentally catalog every track on all these other albums, and I think that is really melodic, and he's really trying something different there.
There's not a whole lot of fancy, popping and slapping and tapping or any of that. He's just finger style on the upright and playing it pretty straight, which I think leaves a lot of room for Lur to throw in some cool melodic lines on top of it. And Lur as well, I think, is it's about as melodic as I hear Lur get as well. Usually Lur goes into Lur land, like we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
And here he's got the
band G on. He cannot do that. He's not playing pedals and stuff. Yeah. It's called
I'll tell you what, though.
You guys, I don't know if you know that. It's called the band G. Not the
right,
band
yeah.
G.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. I've heard Lur get pretty wild on the band G, though. I think.
Oh, yeah.
So what's interesting, one of the 3 Jay Lane shows where they did this was actually my first Primus show.
Oh,
that Frankie had mentioned earlier. So I was pretty stoked. That show was really Brown heavy for some reason, which I thought was awesome because I really like the Brown album. Yep. And then they bust out De Anza Jig, and I knew that it wasn't a real common track, so I was pretty stoked to get it. But I'm pretty most of the time Les does one of these tunes, he kind of stops it in the middle and gives a little speech about Lur and leads them in with a 2, 3, 4, and then Lur kind of does his thing. And sometimes Lur goes into Lurland with it. And on the record here, though, he does play it pretty melodic, pretty
The record's
straight.
pretty cut and dry. But answer me this, Matthew, because I don't know, but Les plays the 5-string stand-up, which is B-E-A-D-G, right? Does he go to the low B on the stand-up?
You might be able to answer this a question for me on this, actually, because I've sometimes been under the assumption that he adds a higher string to it instead of a lower string on the upright, because he likes to do a lot of those squealy kind of like.
He does the squealy stuff between the
behind the
bridge and where the strings disappear into the back. I could call his tech Ryan and confirm. It's been so long since I've messed with that bass as a tech.
But to answer your question,
sure, it's a low B because he loves to do that low strum where it goes, wah, like lower than an E would go.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't think he goes that low
on this particular tune. That's what I was just asking if you heard that there was the B string involved.
Not to my knowledge, no.
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have gone to the high B on that setup. I'm pretty sure it's low B, E-A-D-G.
Okay.
As opposed to E-A-D-G-B?
It's a C.
C. The C.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a drummer.
No. I think he sticks pretty close to home base on that tune.
Yeah, it's straightforward to stand up.
Yeah.
Can you give us some insight on what Larry's when you talk about how he's being melodic? He is doing some really cool things.
He's not sticking too close to the melody, but he's sticking pretty close melodically to what's going on in Les's bass line, at least from what I can hear. I haven't sort of learned that one, figured it out by ear. Truthfully, it's almost like learning Les's bass parts through his discography. Learning Lur's stuff on top of that seems like an insurmountable task to me. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing about Lur on the banjee is that he plays the 6-string one, which is E-A-D-G-B-E, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas a regular 4-string banjo, what is the tuning? And it's got that really high tuning peg on the 4th string.
Yeah, it's got like a drone string at the top there. It's used a lot like bluegrass and stuff.
So Lur is able to just not have to like twist his mind to play a banjo in that situation, and can just play along and be in key where he normally knows he's in key with what Les is doing. Is what I've always surmised about why he played the 6-string banjo.
The banjo, it looks at first glance like, it's another, stringed, fretted instrument, but it is a completely different world from guitar or bass.
But those 6-string ones that he has, he had an older one, the Pork Soda era, and then he got a Deering one right at the end of Pork Soda that we had, and it was a regular fretted neck. It wasn't like a banjo neck where the fretboard is skinny and the frets are way spread out. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, I inherited a banjo at some point. I still have it. I don't even know the brand. It was made in the 50s or 40s or something, so I should take care of it. Yeah, the tuning on those is, I think it's G, D, G, B, D, so you get a lot of octaves out of your open strings.
And the one string is what Matthew's, the drone string. It's not
that G.
You just kind of strum along with it or pick at it.
Mm-hmm. I remember trying to learn a few things. I think it was a Mel Bay banjo book from 1962, and so I'm playing these songs I've never heard before, and the fingerings were just way off. And this was after I had been playing guitar for a little bit, and it just threw me off. Totally confused me because I had to learn new shapes.
You got to get some Roy Clark records, dude. Figure it out.
Dude.
Maybe someday I'll get it out and play it on the old Instagram Live and scare away all our followers. That'd be fun.
So I have a question for Matt. You experienced firsthand the Anza jig performed with Jay Lane. What differences did you observe compared to the studio track with Herf?
It's one of those tracks. There's not a whole lot of room to really deviate. Like we were saying, it's sort of just a bass drum and snare kind of. Jay played it pretty straight from what I can remember, and I know that Soya has said that the sort of the meathead days are sort of behind us, but that has unfortunately not been my experience at Primus shows. But it wasn't.
There's seats down to the front, or whether there's a general admission.
Yeah. So it wasn't one of those tunes that I recall everyone going crazy for. But then again, like I remember them playing Over the Falls, and like a mosh pit erupted. So it's like. Right. My memory could be hazy on that one, but Yeah, live it was very much played pretty straight to the album, like I said, except for maybe Les calling out Lur to do a particularly spectacular extended Banji solo.
Right on. That sounds like 100% correct of what I would expect if they played it.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that Soya cleared up for me when we did the Punchbowl special, because I read an interview where Herb said he hated that song. And I always thought it was because of the lyrics. But then Soya said that it's because, it's really repetitive. So it must be really boring for him to play.
Yeah, especially live, And at that moment was the Meathead moment, when the mosh pits were part of everything that happened every night. Mm-hmm. And then when Les came out and played that song, it was awesome. I mean, it was funny. It's cool. It's in the vein of Primus and Les's side jaunts,
Going back to the recording or the making of the record, I remember Soya, you said this a few times where Herb would go, what is up with this thing? Whatever it was a bass line or a specific track. It was just go with it. And so I wonder if that was, because this is clearly a Les thing. Because
as we all know, there's lots of filler fodder of songs across all these records, that obviously are Les's vibe. He likes to throw in little ditties and little thises and that's. And sometimes it's like You Can't Kill Michael Malloy, which is completely not like this. But, Beaver was supposed to be one of these little just filler ditties. And it turned into like a song. And then this came out of him going, I still want to get a little ditty in there, It's not regular old Primus. I always want to throw in those kooky, funky things, In that vein, he loves to do this kooky, funky vein of like deep, 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 and not like funk out. Again, like not being in anybody's head, or there's no conversations going on with the band. Les has the whole thing masterminded, and he just says, hey, Herb, play this to this, and he just starts playing it. Lure, you're going to play the Banji on this one. They just kind of ran the track, or the tape, I can't remember specifically how it all unfolded, but then the next thing there's lyrics and it's all about Flounce and all his other high school friends, and it's like, hey, there's that song. All right.
Yeah, it is definitely one that to put at the back of the record. I imagine this would be really strange at track 3 or 4. Especially given what we have on the record.
Yeah, it's definitely a side 2 track.
Yeah, and I even wrote this in my notes because I started getting, I don't know why. It's not even my thing. Why do I feel like I need to control it? But I even wrote, because sometimes I get irritated with this track, I wrote, save it for the Holy Mackerel record. I was like, he could have done that. I'm not saying this is
for that record. Come on, man.
This track isn't the reason Tim Alexander left Primus, but I was like, well, I know he didn't like it. So, I don't know. In 6 there for the Beat a Dead Horse, Les just went, I'm just going to torture everybody. We're going to play this song over and over again.
Well, I got a theory about the upright tracks. I'd like to know what you guys think. Soya mentioned at some point that Les always wants to get the upright in the record somehow. And
in the set.
And it tends to be a couple of tracks on each album. For example, if you look at Pork Soda, you have something like Mr. Crinkle, which is one of the biggest Primus numbers. And then on the same album, you have The Air is Getting Slippery. Complete contrast to Mr. Crinkle. Then on this album, you have Glass Sandwich and The Anza Jig. Glass Sandwich is quite a dark number, and The Anza Jig, is the exact opposite. And even as recent as Green Naugahyde, you get stuff like Jillies on Smack. Yeah. But you also have Eternal Consumption Engine. Right. So it seems like when Les puts 2 upright numbers in a record, one tends to be, heavy, dark, and serious, and the other one is silly.
That's just the pattern of a songwriter. Things go good as a track record, and so you always want to kind of keep that in for the fans. They want a upbeat one and a low beat one on the upright, So I mean, I would put it to that.
There does seem to be a formula there, or at least a pattern. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. We did our Sincere one. How about this one? And then off you go. You try the.
And then there's Space Farm squeezes in there. And then you're just like, oh my God, now they're on it, dude.
Now we're in the Bohemian Rhapsody moment.
Yes, exactly. And then they go on to Grapevine. It's like, okay, all right, back to Primus.
I think what's really cool, the upright kind of lends itself to those 2 personalities that you're describing, right? Like, on one hand, it can be this really kind of jaunty, old-fashioned, kind of old-timey sounding thing, but when Les plugs it into an amp and uses the bow and puts on a load of delay and just, like Soya said, does like a drone, low drone note, it can sound really ominous, kind of like Jilly and Crinkle. So it can sound really dark and menacing in a way that you can't really quite do on like a fretted or a fretless. It's got its own personality going on.
And Les has created a unique character with that bass, over these records, him playing an upright bass. I remember seeing them open for Rush on the Roll the Bones tour in Texas at the arena. My band Victims Family happened to be playing at a club up the street, and somehow found out they were playing, made a call. We got tickets and passes and went down there and saw it. And that was the first time I'd seen them opening for Rush, like in an arena like that, and it was amazing. And he still had that really old pawn shop 4-string stand-up. It was just on a drum stand clamped on there somehow. And, he does, what's the Seas of Cheese song, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they bust into Kashmir. He's going, yeah. I was like, whoa. I was like, wow, stand up. Les has got that in his quiver of tricks now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that Tim should mention that, because I recall seeing a YouTube video, with an audience recording of Primus opening for Rush. Just like Tim mentioned, Les begins playing Kashmir on the upright, but you can hear the audience actually booing him when he starts playing Kashmir. Yeah.
The Melvins opened for Rush and got booed off the stage every night because they took it like as a badge of honor to just mess with the crowd every night by playing slower and slower the more they got booed. You know about that?
I didn't know about that, man. That's awesome.
I think Primus fared well on the Rush tour. They're prog and funky, and Frankie, I've never heard of Primus getting booed on that tour or people booing. Yeah,
it's a funny video. But speaking about those early tours, I just wanted to tell you, Tim. Primus actually performed at Red Rocks on July 4th, 1991, and then they went back to Red Rocks during September 21st, 1992. And then Punch Bowl.
Okay, so then I think the Punch Bowl was their first headlining. They might have been festivals they played with other Gathering of the Tribes or something else that was pre-Punch Bowl where they were just kind of...
Yeah.
You tell me. I mean, were they headliners there before Punch Bowl?
No, they performed a full set list, so they were not supporting. But I mean, they were not opening. But I guess they must have been playing with a bigger act, in order to be there. But it's really amazing that Primus actually performed at Red Rocks as early as 1991. It's quite an achievement.
That's cool. Good info, Frankie. Thank you.
Yeah.
As Soya kind of alluded to, a lot of the songs on Do It a Twang are approached pretty similarly on the bass in terms of there's normally on like an upright, if you were playing rockabilly, for example, and you were trying to do the kind of... You'd be doing it all with your hands like this, right? So it'd be like...
Right.
But the way Les Claypool does it is he does a muted pop on the upper string, and then a muted slap, and then the note. So,
yeah.
And that pretty much that goes for a lot of the tunes on the Twang records. So, like the Anza jig in the alternate dimension where that made it onto the record, it would sound like. I don't have the resonator bass. I used to own one, but I sold it a while ago. But
that was cool.
That's sort of what it sounded like. Like I said, there's a YouTube video that you can kind of watch them playing it a little bit live. It pretty much sounds like that.
It's funny. I don't remember if Les would change that set list every night. Mm-hmm. Obviously there was the meat of the set list, but every once in a while he'd say, "Oh, let's try this." And we do it at sound check, and I was like, Keo would be like, "Okay, just Staying Alive by the Bee Gees," and we're gonna do it. Okay, and Keo just ran with it,
I mentioned Stompin' Tom because I just wonder when you start putting it all together, and Matt, maybe you can speak to this because Les has mentioned before when you'd go to, I think it was his granddad's house, there was always that old country radio on, and he remembered Stompin' Tom Connors really well of Canadian country music fame. Yeah, that was one name he singled out over the years hearing. I guess air's getting slippery a little bit, but definitely Deanza Jig. It really feels like he's starting to dive into that or I guess that style of music to a degree, and he's really drawing on that influence. And then I think it just explodes into a twang, but of course he Les Claypoolifies it, I suppose. But I'm curious what you think, Matt. And Soya, it sounds like you got some insight too.
I got nothing, dude. Come on.
That's why you're here, man.
The obvious reference is Amos Moses, right? Like that's that's like
Jerry
the
Reed,
most countrified sort of Primus track that I can think of, other than the bits in Beaver where there's the, I think I remember reading that as well, Josh. The being exposed to that music sort of younger, and it kind of has a nostalgic connection for him.
Yeah, Jerry Reed was the big one for him as a kid.
Yeah.
Would always get played in the car. That's why they did the Amos Moses on the Rhinopus. That was one of his favorite tunes as a kid, coming up in his grandparents' or his parents' car. I think it was his grandparents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the twang version of that, too. That's killer.
That's interesting. I haven't I listened to the Keo interview that you guys did here, and I don't remember him talking about De Anza or why they didn't do it. It sounds very correct that I remember them trying to pull more songs out because it was so fun to pull them out, and try to make them go don't. And sometimes it just did not work. He just couldn't get it together, or it just did not jive, with the way that pattern goes. I don't know why, because, you do Jerry was a race car driver, and they did Staying Alive, and they did anything like that, and it all fit perfect. It didn't matter, but sometimes Les was like, no, dance is not it. I could picture that, him saying, we're not doing this. I can't sing it correctly going like this or whatever.
Well, we should definitely talk about the lyrics to this track, because we have a lot of reminiscing about the old high school days that Les is doing. And we have a lot of names. There's a lot of name drop in here. We have a lot of familiar names and places. We get our second Taco Bell reference on the record, but I have downloaded the Soya's tour diaries or tour journals from the late 90s. With Primus. And I sent them to you, Soya, and I know you weren't too enamored with your own writing, but there were so many times when you guys went and picked up Taco Bell somewhere. It just seems like that was the official fast food place of Primus. Well,
it just was convenient, and it was before the whole organic, readily available foods were around, We ate Taco Bell now and again. We ate McDonald's in Europe a bunch of times in the 90s and stuff, and just because we needed food, and we just went there because we didn't want to sit down in some restaurant because it wasn't as convenient as it is now for all kinds of foods everywhere,
Sure.
But in Sebastopol, there was a Taco Bell that was close, and if we went into town, it was like, we got to hit it, dude. Got to get a 7-layer. Lure wanted a 7-layer, so we got to go. I don't need Taco Bell anymore, or fast food at all,
I was actually going to make a point to mention that. I thought it was strange that there were two separate Taco Bell references on this record.
Yeah, true.
And we mentioned the sort of strange propensity for movie references on here. We got Demolition Man in 1993, where the only restaurant left in the world is Taco Bell. Was there something in the cultural zeitgeist at this time that was like, Taco Bell was just huge for some.
Well, the thing about Taco Bell is if you wanted to eat vegetarian, they were the only fast food place that offered vegetarian,
Okay.
And Larry liked to eat vegetarian, still always tries to eat that as much as possible.
I figured it was the Chihuahua.
It was like this funny thing that, all right, we're going to hit Taco Bell and be like, oh God, we're going to eat fast food again. Okay. I didn't have a choice. I had to go where these guys went, and if they wanted to go to Taco Bell on the way back to Les's house, we had to stop at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll get a meal, get a couple tacos and a burrito. I never ate that 7-layer stuff. That was some lure thing. Les used to get pissed that I wouldn't do the hot sauce. I always did the medium sauce. He's like, man, you gotta get spicy, man. You gotta get spicy. I'm like, no, dude, I like the medium flavor. Dude, you gotta get spicy, man. It's like, no, dude. I mean, I've had it a few times with my kids in the last 10 years because they started eating that stuff. We never took them there. They go there with their friends. And every once in a while, they'll come home and go, Dad, we got you a taco. And it's like, ooh, Taco Bell. And you taste it like, man, it's the same as it was when I was a kid, But in the reference in De Anza Jig, that's like less high school stuff. When Taco Bell was like just a restaurant, there was no fast food. It wasn't considered that in your eyes. Like you didn't have a choice. It was go to the diner or go to a swanky restaurant that you couldn't afford, or you go to Taco Bell, or McDonald's,
No, it was a different time for sure. Because I remember family bringing home KFC or Taco Bell, and it was like eating out at a restaurant. It wasn't different. It wasn't considered like TV dinners were still huge back then.
And as a kid, that was considered going out to a restaurant, was going to Taco Bell or going and grabbing McDonald's or something. It's like your mom's not making food tonight. We're going out.
Yeah, as a kid, it was McDonald's was a big deal, or that sort of thing. Like, oh, we're going, yes,
yeah.
So we get that second reference on the record. Of course, they're hanging at the Jack in the Box, but they eat at the Taco Bell. So they have their routines, which I think is great because I had my high school routines too.
I'm sure they all parked their cars at Jack in the Box, and everybody hung in that parking lot. But Flounce and Les didn't like Jack in the Box, so they said, "Okay, let's go get some food." They drive over and get some Taco Bell.
Speaking of Flounce, he gets a couple of mentions in here, and I just wrote down this question. I wonder if Flounce still has that Mustang.
Definitely not.
Oh, darn. Because this was back in the early 80s or late 70s.
That would be the early 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder what year that Stang was and how he took care of that thing. Because I think back fondly on my 1986 Chevy Celebrity, for crying out loud, my first car.
Well, you got muscle car heads like Les was and still is, and Fonz was in high school trying to have that hot rod, prep the girls. Yeah, I had a Volkswagen Squareback. I didn't impress anybody, so.
But you got from point A to point B.
That's right. I got to go see the shows, and Slayer, and all that stuff.
Nobody cares what you're driving at the Slayer show. They just want to be a meathead. They just want to just run into you.
I just want to say, Josh, I still remember the day she gave me her virginity, and then she gave it to everyone in our vicinity. It's so crude, but it's so clever. It's such a clever lyric.
Yes, I was going to point that one out. That's Jenny Hernando. I hope he used a pseudonym. But yes, so that couplet is really
other than
great.
and Fred, all those names have been changed.
Oh, really? Okay, I was curious about that because that first one, with Jenny Hernando, you probably don't want to broadcast that name, but that's a great couplet, Virginity and Vicinity. I'm a big fan of that lyric. I think that lyric is really funny.
It's a great rhyme. He's nailed it on that one.
Yeah,
dude.
that's like an opening salvo. Like, oh yes, that's awesome. I can cheer for that one. That's funny as hell. And then he mentions Julie Tolentino, she's a real person, and
that's not her name. What he says in this song, it's all true. I mean, it's all true tales of his childhood.
The Julie Tolentino is a dancing Filipino.
But
she was a girl that he dated. This is what I've gathered out of him telling me when I asked him, and he said, her name is whatever. And opened up this huge, huge lesbian bar in New York City, and it was like the biggest lesbian bar in all of New York City. 10 years, 20 years later, she became super famous for this bar that she opened up. I don't even know what her real name is.
Oh, okay,
because he told me back then. But,
well, I did look it up, and I guess she goes by that name, Julie Tolentino, because that's the reference there. Because I found the name of the club she ran for over 20 years.
I'm telling you guys the truth. I don't know, man. This is really a serious diary of Les's high school days for fun. In that twangy, goofy song, country song.
Okay. Well, if it is the Julie Tolentino, she did run a place called the Clit Club. That bar was around for like 20 years. And Julie Tolentino, I guess another claim to fame is she posed with Madonna in Madonna's book called Sex. So then Todd Squilati, also pseudonym?
I would think so. The milkshake up the nose, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Well, when you Google Todd Squilati, you do get a guy. He's got an interesting job. I did a little reading up on him. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool
it's
job.
Not the same dude. Names are all changed.
All right.
Protect the innocent.
I would hope so. Absolutely. And then we come back around after Todd Squilati with the milkshake thing. And then we come back around to Flanza Fred. So we have these characters. It's pretty cool. At this point, he's probably, 15 years out of high school or so. So that's around the time I remember kind of starting to look back and going, oh, yeah, I wonder what happened to so-and-so.
Well, Fonson Fred's he's the king of the old guard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's been around for the entire duration of this thing, right? Absolutely.
But, there's other characters in the old guard that have been around since the beginning as well. I came in 87. We're talking early 80s, when Flounce was still on there.
Yeah.
They're starting in there.
Did Flounce get his nickname from Les?
Of course. Everybody gets their nickname from Les.
Yeah, we know that propensity for sure. Okay. So
that's where I got mine, was from Les in 88.
So that's really cool because it's just that started that trend and everybody got their nickname and it's stuck for everybody, especially when you're credited on the record. And that's how people know you.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
I mean, I have about 15 that Les calls me. Soya was the earliest one, and that's how everybody knows me. But when we're working together and personally hanging out, he's got other ones he calls me. It's pretty funny. I'm not
Nice.
I'm not going to tell you because that's secret stuff, man. You guys are new guard. You don't get those secrets yet.
Not yet. We'll get old someday. But you mentioned Kirk Hammett. Of course, there are some other notable De Anza High School alums, including Kirk Hammett and Jeff Becerra of Possessed fame as well. And then I was just looking it up. There's a Wikipedia article. There's a bunch of NFL players, but Les, Kirk, and Jeff Becerra, what a trio from around the same time period. And they all, made their mark on the world of music for sure.
It's only in hindsight that it becomes amazing, because when you're in that moment of life, you have no idea, I remember one time when I was asking Les about the Kirk Hammett thing, and I was like, really, you guys in high school? He was, oh, yeah, dude, he was all at the Coke bottle glasses. You've seen the picture, the Kirk Hammett picture.
Oh, sure.
He used to have his math book and, put his hand on the bind to go, you see that, Les? This is this kind of chord, man. I'm gonna be famous playing these chords, man. It's a metal chord, just goofy stuff like that. Where Les is like, yeah, man, whatever, dude. Sure, right on, dude. And of course, you go 20 years ahead, and Kirk Hammett is the biggest guitar player on the planet.
Yeah.
It's all hindsight stuff to go back and what you're saying about Possessed Dude and Jeff and Kirk and Les all in a math class together or something. It's
well,
hindsight,
sure.
fodder,
Right. And they're, like you said, those guys aren't thinking about that. They're not thinking about 20 years from now. They're thinking about, I got to go home and practice because I want to go get gigs. They're planning, they're thinking that way. But it is really great to look back and go, man, Possessed, Metallica, Primus. I can't think of another.
What came out of some of those dudes in those classes,
Yeah.
Who knows what the other kids in the class? They might be Nobel Peace Prize winners or nuclear scientists or whatever the heck,
Yeah.
We're only focusing on the music people from that moment.
Well, of course, it's the athletes and the musicians that are always the noted alums, unless you're a U.S. senator.
Let's get back to that Flounce and Fred.
Oh, Flounce and man. So he and Les have been friends for so long. I mean, that's pretty cool. And of course, he makes it into the songs here and there. And, he's been on plenty of the tours. So it's really cool to keep your old friends around.
Yeah. Old Flounce, man. He was the personal assistant, for the Pork Soda moment. He didn't want to do it anymore. And then when me and Les hooked up again and we made the Punch Bowl record together, all of us, they already had Jerry Johnson and Pork Chop, and Guitar Tech dude was uncertain at that point. They got a real guitar tech. And so they gave me Flounce and Fred's job, and he handed me the torch of the personal assistant at that time. So for the Punch Bowl, I was the personal assistant on the tour. But at home, I took care of the warehouse and all the rehearsals and the gear and got everything prepped and did all that stuff. But that's when I met Flounce. Well, I met him in the old days a little bit, but that's when me and him really we laughed, we chuckled. I'm like, dude, tell me what do I do? How do I do this? He goes, just have fun, dude. Okay. What's that mean? We were at some barbecue in Berkeley. It was hilarious. And he told me that.
Yeah, I think in some of our conversations, I think you had mentioned that he's not going out on the road anymore, right?
Oh God, no. He has, that was it. Pork Soda, he was like, this is not for me. I'm not doing it. And then he took a job. He was working for Goodyear tire company, doing belts and hoses for auto part stores. He was like a head A&R dude for that kind of thing.
Yeah, so he was holding it down at home. Yeah,
I think he's still doing that. I don't know. Last time I saw him, I can't remember. We might have talked about that, but
yeah,
he lives right near Les. They're buddies. He moved up in the same area. So
you'll see him again at the next Old Guard reunion then.
Always. I mean, yeah, every time, or not every time. Sometimes go up there to hang out with Les, and Flounce comes out, goes to lunch with me and Les. It's hilarious, dude.
What a crew. Frankie and Matt, maybe you can chime in on this too, but I think as a teenager for me, I really loved reading the liner notes to Primus records in particular because everybody had a nickname. To me, it just revealed something about, to a degree, their personality. I thought, okay, there's this crew of tight-knit people. They're all friends. They have these cool nicknames. They kind of have their own little world. And I'm a fractional part of it because I'm holding this lyric book or this record in my hands. So that's, as a fan, that's like, I felt like I was part of the group.
Well, I mean, that was Les's thing, like he would sing about his friends and he would give everyone a nickname and everybody was family. And, I would give Les credit as the most generous, bring his friends into the fold to help them out and get them a job in his circle with his band more than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Me and Keo laugh about that. There used to be that 5 degrees to Kevin Bacon or whatever the heck.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Anybody that's in the Bay Area that's in the music industry has a few angles that Les Claypool had a finger on helping you get there,
Yeah.
He's that dude. He really always helps out his friends and his family and makes sure everybody's like part of it, and enjoying it and getting a piece of it,
Yeah, absolutely. And, based on what you said, Josh, I do recall going through the liner notes when I first got into Primus, and a lot of that stuff was a mystery to me. I mean, up until a few weeks ago when we spoke with Soya, and for example, he cleared up the big thing on the Tales from the Punch Bowl liner notes. I mean, those are the kind of things that were a mystery for a long time. I'm talking about
what was that? Refresh my memory, Frankie. I forget.
No, it's something about the big lighters.
Oh, the big lighter thing.
Yeah.
Ding dong stuff. That was just comedy,
Regarding the nicknames, I just wanted to share with you guys an interview with Tim Alexander from back in 1995. And they asked him, is it right that you got the nickname Herb because you're into herbal medicine? And he said, yeah, I don't know why. It just happened. That was the reason that name was chosen, because I was taking a lot of herbs. I always carried some around in case I got sick or something.
Yep.
So who was doing that? He said, Les. He gives nicknames to a lot of people. Do you wish it hadn't happened? And he said, well, I used to. I'm accustomed to it now, but it's not like I like it. I'm just used to it. I don't take it as seriously as I used to.
Yeah, I don't call him Herb anymore. I address him as him always now.
Yeah, I would call him Mr. Alexander Sir, but that's just because I'm a fan.
I'm just saying, as close as I am with the guy for 30.
Yeah, not to get too out there with the nickname stuff, but like, for example, like if anyone's familiar with A Clockwork Orange, I know this is kind of like coming out of nowhere, but like there's this whole language and sort of everything has a nickname and like droogs.
Yeah, that's language.
The more you get into that book, the purpose of that is to like try to endear you to that main character, despite the fact that he's like a shitbag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the Primus world, it's like it is like a world. Coming from it from a fan perspective. Once you've got the records and you've read the lyrics and all this stuff, it's like this huge cast of revolving characters, and they kind of cross paths here and there, and it's endearing in a way, is what I'm trying to say. Where you kind of get drawn into this cast of characters and the completely unique nature of the music, and it's so of its own thing that you just get sucked right into it. That's always been something that I found very intriguing about the band and the lyrical approach that Les takes with all of his storytelling and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's part of Les's persona is that he really wants everyone to know he's got his personal characters around him, And even if you're a new guy on the crew, you would get a nickname from Les right out of the gate, or within a few shows, He wants people to see that he's got this cast of characters, not just I have my crew. It's like, we got Bonzo Freddy, we got Tim Soya, we got Flapjacks, we got fucking Stewie over there on this or whatever the heck, He just always loves to reference everybody like they're really personal to him, And not just a crew guy. You're the lighting guy. No, that's Jake. It's, not Jason Richardson. That's old Jake over there, He always wants to address you as he's personal with you.
Right. And that really establishes a relationship. And I think that's really important, especially coming from the head of the operation or the band leader or what have you.
It's important that he conveys that to the fans with the liner notes or at live shows. When dude happens to come out handing him a guitar, he'll make a comment sometimes. That's old pork chop right there. You guys see that, dude? Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, I've been on tours where you're just some crew dude and you never even speak or see the artist.
Right. Yeah. If they're running the merch booth or you see them just in the wings of the stage, or you see them when Frankie sees them 6 hours ahead of the show, when he's hanging out at the back door, And it's so cool because when you're in that situation, and Frankie, you can speak to this, it's somebody walks by and you can just go, hey, Trouse, what's up? Or whoever it might be. And you're using their crew name or their nickname because you feel like you're part of it.
Because Les gives it out, and he wants you all as fans to understand it's his family, not just people that work for him.
Oh, you can also see that in the social media posts from the band. I'm sure there's somebody who manages the social networks of the band, for regular announcements or stuff like that. But when somebody dear to the band or somebody close to Les Claypool passes away, he always posts these very moving pieces on social media.
because everyone's special to him that's been a part of his band or his life, because he really wants everyone to be close to him, you know? Old Flounce and Freddie, you can't change his name because that's Old Flounce, you know? He's there, you know? He's his best friend, you know?
It's just this guy in his 50s. To other people, he's this legend, right? And he doesn't know who we are, but if I met Flounce and Fred, I'd go, "Oh, Flounce, dude, what's up? Let's talk," you know, and he'd probably be totally bewildered by it.
He'd probably hit delete, turn the computer off, and run it. I will say, listening to it today, I forgot. There's some distance vocal stuff that Les does where he's screaming in the background going, "Hey ho!"
Oh, sure. There's a little yee-haw. Yeah.
It's like, obviously, we all know I wasn't allowed there when he sings. No one is. But I was like, oh, man, he must have had the mic on and went all the way to the other side of the room and screamed it out, ran back and hit stop. You know, it's like, man, that's cool. I love that kind of stuff, you know?
Oh, there's one more thing I actually meant to mention, and this is kind of maybe in the weeds a bit, but so you always got the outro track on the album, right? That's usually referencing something at the very beginning.
Right.
So you got Two to Fi, and you got Los Bastardos.
Yeah.
Then you got Pork Chop's Little Ditty.
Sure.
What I find interesting about this one and Green Naugahyde is that the reference point comes from somewhere else in the record.
Yeah.
Right.
The Captain Shiner thing?
Yeah, so you got Captain Shiner and then Salmon Men on Green Naugahyde, where it's sort of taken from another point in the record, and not that I think there's anything super interesting to read into that, but if you're really into the weird, nerdy minutia of Primus like some of us are, then that's kind of interesting, I think.
Frankie, I think you've waited long enough. Let's set up this live clip.
I would like to play for you guys a performance of the Anza jig in Seattle at the Paramount Theater back in 2003, Tour de Fromage. The reason why I picked this particular performance is because I'm dying for you guys to hear the intro speech from Les Claypool.
Well, hello there. Fancy meeting you in a place like this. This wondrous, beautiful environment. It's been a while since I've been here, and it's been an extremely long while since the three of us have been here together. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the premise of this performance, but we come out, we play some songs, selections from our vast repertoire, and then we do Sailing the Seas of Cheese in its entirety from start to finish. And because Primus is a band that reached such legendary stature, we were around for so many years, in the trenches, out of the trenches, up in the mountains, in the valleys, through the rivers, over the hill, over Dale, doing many things. Our repertoire is so vast, there are songs that we have not performed yet on this tour. Which subsequently means there are songs, hey, this guy's flipping me off, what an intelligent individual you are. Yes. Yes. I'm always amazed by the individual that flips me off, because I think, wow, what a fucking moron. I honestly do. I think, yeah, what is the mentality? I know, you think this is a Limp Bizkit show. Well, it's not a Limp Bizkit show. This is a Primus show. If you're gonna flip me off, please go into the bathroom and flip yourself off in the mirror. I just don't want to see it. It's a bit depressing, actually. Makes me think that the audience is not quite as intelligent as I always thought they were. And that's not true, am I correct? It's just that individual jackass that decides to stand out like a big sore erection. But anyway, this is a song that we have not played together in about 8 years. It's about my high school days.
You mess with Les Claypool when he's on stage, you're going to get it, man. It's never changed over the years, you know?
Yeah, and in this performance, you can particularly tell that, he's fed up with the meatheads at this point in his career.
Yeah.
This is way past the meathead moment.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to point out that at the point where I paused it, it was over 3 minutes into it. So I feel for Tim and Larry. Just kind of
Tim.
especially Tim. He's just, okay, let's start this thing. And this whole track is 8 minutes long. Tim Alexander, I salute you. I'll just say that. Well, there you go. I guess I'll say that Anza Jig, you've been tracked. There's that. Frankie, next time we're going to rehab.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're on the tweak again, dude. You got to stop
Sure.
that, please, for the good of us all. Matt, thanks again for joining us, man. You helped us with DMV, and then you went to the other end of the spectrum and helped us with Anza Jig.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Matt, thank you so much. It was really cool to hear you break down the track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, hold on. Whoa. We can't end yet. One more important point of business. Matt, to you.
Yeah.
Let's hear Tommy the Cat.
All right.
Man, that's some Brown album era.
Yeah, that's
speed
cool.
on that one, dude. That's fast.
That's tempo. Yeah.
The videoplasty is my benchmark. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'll ever get there, but
That's Brown album stuff.
yeah,
What? Play it a little slower. I want to hear what you're going so
I'll
fast.
try. I'll try here.
Whoa, that's good. Nice, dude.
That was good, man.
Awesome. Sawyer heard you play Tommy the Cat. You're in the club.
It's a privileged few, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Dude, that was great. You're close. It's good.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for Primus Tracks, Anza Jig. Next time on The Tweak again, find us at Primus Tracks on Twitter and Instagram. Matt is at Ham of Truth 86. I don't know if you're going to do a supplemental for your own episode, but if you do, that'll be nice and meta. Don't even try to find Soya on the internet. He doesn't want to hear from you. Later days.
Willie Mays.